Everyone. I'm Laura Crandon. I'm the founder and president of Touch for Life, and I'm so happy that you are joining us for Soul Filling Our Sisters. It's a new format, and we are excited. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited that you're joining us. I'm Laura Crandon. I'm the founder and president of Touch for Life, and we are excited about this new S.O.S format, Soul Filling Our Sisters. We got a lot planned for you today. So I'd like to first start out with my story, just so you know why this even got started in 2015. And I hope I can be vulnerable. This is really a safe space for us. And so I'm going to be vulnerable with you and tell you my story. In 2015, I received a mammogram and the results came back dense breast. And I thought, cool, that's all it said. But like 50% of women of color, nobody referred me to any additional screening like an MRI or an ultrasound, even though I should have. So 5 months it went on unabated until I was doing my self-exam in the shower, which we should do. And I found a lump, and it turned out to be breast cancer. And that put me in a club that you never want to be in. So I had chemo, radiation, and surgery. And then because I was tested for what's called biomarkers, that's what's driving my cancer. And that's something that everyone diagnosed with cancer should get. Because I was tested, I got what's called targeted therapy, or really medication that focuses on the genes and proteins that were driving my cancer, but not the good, healthy cells. So I was on that for a year. And then in 2018, I was at my brother-in-law's birthday party and developed a headache that I couldn't shake, even though my professional drinking cousins were giving me a lot of remedies for hangover, and I didn't have that. And so it went on, and this headache wouldn't clear. And it turns out that in 2018, it metastasized to my brain. And so I've had 3 brain surgeries, including one just this past March. But fortunately, in March, I was the technology has advanced, and I received an in and out surgery. And because it's metastatic, I'm on a therapy for the rest of my life. I take infusions every 3 weeks, including one that I had yesterday, but you can see that I'm in good shape. But that infusion is based on knowing what's driving my cancer. And that's why it's important to understand your genetics and your biomarkers. I've also been in a clinical trial at NIH, very fortunate. But in many ways, I'm a unicorn because I got my biomarkers testing, because I got my genetic testing, and because I was in a clinical trial. And by the grace of God, I'm here talking to you today. But I realized that I received something very special that only about 20% of us do as Black women. And that's why I started Touch for Life. And so what we do is 3 things. 1, we get out into the community and work to make sure that you are educated about your breast cancer risks, and if you have it, what to do, your therapies that you should take, or the path that you should take. We get out and work with the community organizations. The second thing that we do, we really work with to challenge the doctors to do better and be more equitable. And lastly, we work on policy to make sure that there are policies in place that cover communities of color. So that's Touch for Life. And then S.O.S is here. Soul Filling Our Sisters was born out of making sure that we're working on that first pillar, which is making sure that you know what I know. I want you to benefit from what I and others have had the privilege of being access to. So that's why we're here. And we are on every 4th Saturday at 11 o'clock to bring the best and brightest to you. That's what we do. And so with that, I want to also just do a check-in for those who are online and watching us. How are you doing? I just want to check in. If you could put in the chat, what's going on and how you're doing. Great. Okay. All right. Yeah, how you doing? How are you? Because this is a safe space. So we created S.O.S. Back last year to make sure that you had a safe space to be in amongst community, that you get information and we get to hang out and really hear information, but just check in with our sisters and be together. And that's what we're doing here. So it's good. Hello from Maryland. I see you. I see you. I happen to be in Pennsylvania at Dr. Mo's farm, the Still I Rise farm out in Pennsylvania that she owns and is the president of, and she'll be on in momentarily. But we are broadcasting here live. Oh, great. Okay. Oh, day off from radiation. I get it. I totally get it. Had lots of radiation. Yes. Yes, it's a rainy day. It really is. We came from Maryland, took the train, planes, automobiles, and drove up to be here at the farm. She's having a special event for us breasties. And so I'm excited to be here. And with that, we have a fantastic show planned today. We're going to start out not only with my story, but also it's a story from a fellow sister. And I want to make sure it's important that you hear what she has to say about what Tallulah has experienced, because we want to bring these stories to you so you know what's happening and can take action on your own. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tallulah.
So hello, everyone. I think they're going to show a short video, but until they do, my name is Tallulah Anderson, and I am a 3-time breast cancer survivor who currently is living with inherited genetic mutation known as BRCA2. I was diagnosed for the first time with breast cancer when I was 37 years of age, with my last diagnosis at the age of 54. So I'm older, much older now. And that was 8 years ago. And ever since, I've been living cancer-free. A little bit about my story and my story of why I know that I have BRCA2. I'm the youngest of 10 siblings, 7 brothers and 3 sisters. And I have a unique family history. I lost both my mom and dad to breast cancer. So because I communicated that to my physicians when I went for my first PAP test, as well as a PAPS test. I told that to my doctor, who recommended that I go be able to get a mammogram due to my family history. So I was able to be screened earlier because I knew and communicated that family history. Again, a part of my family history is that out of my 7 brothers and 3 sisters, I have had 2 brothers who was diagnosed with breast cancer, who are deceased now. And I have 2 older sisters who are survivors. One is a 35-year survivor and the other an 8-year survivor. And from my siblings, just 5 years ago, one of my sister's daughter was diagnosed with breast cancer. What is the connection? We all were tested and found to have the BRCA2 mutation. My story is being diagnosed at an early age and being able to be screened early, put me in contact with a great doctor who recommended, at that time they were starting a new study and wanted to know if I was interested in being genetically tested. I didn't know what it was all about, but I knew, hey, yes, let me do this because she told me all about the mutations and how you can inherit it from your parents. And so I wanted that knowledge so that I could share it with my family. So that's why I took part in getting genetically tested years ago. And they built out my genetic family tree. And so that could tell me more information on my family, because you could see from my mom's side and my dad's side where who had cancers and what that connection was. So as you can see on the screen, this is my family cancer history. Up top is my mom and dad, and underneath you will see me in the middle, and to the left and right of me, my two sisters who are survivors right now, and to the far left and far right are my two brothers, one of which passed a year, actually a couple of months ago. Also underneath one of my sister to the right is her daughter, my niece, who was just diagnosed 5 years ago. And then I have two cousins who were diagnosed with breast cancer. Notably, these are not first cousins. However, one of those cousins was diagnosed with uh, triple negative breast cancer. So this is just a
I
piece
just
of
wanted
my family history. Yes.
so it's interesting you have a lot of people don't know, but you have two brothers who had breast cancer. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then we want you to cue up the video that's coming up.
Okay. So two brothers with breast cancer and Laura, my dad. So my genetic testing showed that the dominant gene was my dad's side, right? So my dad had two first cousins who had ovarian cancer. My dad's dad died at a younger age from cancer. I'm thinking it's a connection to the mutation. And from that, I learned that the male gene is a dominant gene, so it's a much higher chance that the male members of your family will inherit the mutation. So with that, two of my brothers, so I have 7 brothers, two of my brothers breast cancer, but one brother prostate cancer, but he hasn't been genetically tested as yet.
Okay, so that's another point, just real quick, is that folks know that you inherit 50% of your DNA from your mom and 50% from your dad. So it's not just the women in your family tree who count and matter, it's the men too. And it sounds like even more if they've had prostate or breast or pancreatic,
Yes.
any kind of cancer like that. That's a gem. That's a gem. I hope
Yes.
we're taking note of that, because later on we're going to have a giveaway and you'll want to remember that fact. Okay, cue up the video, Tallulah.
Okay, so this is a video I did for the CDC a couple of years ago, and it was about my family history of breast cancer. I am the youngest of 7 brothers and 3 sisters. And when I was 10 years old, my mom, she died from breast cancer. And not until her death did I know what she died from. It wasn't discussed. Then my oldest sister was diagnosed with breast cancer, and so was my dad. And then there was 2 brothers, 2 sisters, a niece. Now that's a lot of people. The first time I heard genetic testing spoken to me was when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I saw a specialist, and after she heard about my family history, she said to me, go get tested for the BRCA2 mutation. I was like, okay, let's do it. They told me the gene that I carried was connected to other cancers. And so when I received the information, I shared it out with my family. But some of my brothers and sisters, they just didn't act. I think the issue for some of my family members was having access to get tested. Then there were some who said, well, when they talked to their doctor about getting it done, it was like a certain amount that they had to pay. And some people, honestly, some could not afford that copay. But as years went by, more people in my family did talk about it. Now, when we're together as a family, I always bring up the conversations. And the younger ones are now more receptive to doing it. They want to know. And they're talking about it, but they got to do it. They have to take action. Great. So that action is still going on with my nieces and nephews. And my son knows that when he turns 35, which is in 5 years, he will be genetically tested. And now he has a son. So his son, when he gets at a certain age, will have to be genetically tested.
I'm here. I made it. We all made it. And, Tallulah, you bring up such a good point about testing our sons, right? So when we talk about genetic testing, many times people think, okay, it's just, oh, it's only on my mother's side. Or, you know what, it was my grandmother and my, my we talk about genetic testing, the way cancer genes work, everybody has the gatekeeper genes, like the BRCA1 and 2 genes, like the APC gene for colon cancer, like the PALB2 and the BRCA, and there are so many, P53, ATM genes. And so these genes are the gatekeepers. They help to protect us from getting cancer. Now, when those genes have a mutation in them, then that makes us more susceptible to getting the cancer that it was supposed to protect us from getting. We inherit those mutations from mom and dad 50-50. So it matters what's on dad's side of the family. It matters if there are no brothers in the family, because did you know that men can also carry a BRCA mutation?
Yes.
Yes. And only 8% of men, up to 8%. So anywhere from 0 to 8% of men who have a BRCA mutation might get breast cancer, and they have no ovaries, which means 92% of men who have that mutation won't necessarily express it, at least not with breast cancer, certainly not with ovarian. They might get prostate cancer, up to 20%. But there are a lot of men who could be walking around with that strong family history of female breast cancer, female ovarian cancer, and not know that they should be tested because they could harbor a mutation that they could then pass to their sons and daughters. And so that's the tricky part about all of this. And it's why it's so important for us to get that full family history. And it's all the things we don't like to talk about, even family. Cancer. She died at 29 of a rare cancer. I didn't find out till I was almost 29 what she died from, because no one wanted to talk about it. It was a horrible thing to have happen in life, And so I don't think that Dr. Davis is going to join us today, but I really want us to drive home the point about why this is important and why it's important in the Black community, because it's so much deeper than race, right? Can we talk about that?
Right. And before we go there, something that you mentioned just sparked something. I have a sister who was genetically tested, and her test came back negative. So she told her daughter that she did not have to be tested because she did not carry the gene. And I had to correct that and say, but she has a father. And so yes, she should still be tested because you have that side of her family. So you can't negate that. So great point.
Well, while we're talking about family history, I want you to know, family, that we have developed through our Black Genes Matter platform a resource for you to collect your family history. We have a long form and a short form. And if you go to blackgenesmatter.info and sign up, we'll have also the QR code later. We will send you that resource directly in your email, both the short and the long form. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how did you even bring this up? You have so many people tested in your family, Tallulah. Like a lot of people are kind of stuck how to have the conversation. And then once you know, like, how do you tell somebody else that you carry this gene in your family?
For me, it was quite easy. I think it was more around education and being educated about it. And so I was my family advocate. So it flowed fairly easy. And we gather together quite often. And we've lost many family members to different cancers. So for us, it's about being prepared to make decisions on a confect. Now, are there some who have not been tested? Yes, and there's some reasons behind that. It may be financially, access is a big part. Sometimes, some people just really don't. They say they don't really want to know. That's just that, they're hard-headed. They just say they don't want to know because they think it's going to affect their insurance coverage and their employment. So if it gets out, and it's that whole thing centered around being tested and what they are going to do with your medical history.
There's a lot of misinformation about genetic, and there are still some access issues. So, one issue that I like to bring up frequently are that the guidelines for cancer testing have changed, and they continue to change and expand. So you might not have gotten tested 5 years or 10 years ago because you might not have been eligible 5 years or 10 years ago. But today, the guidelines may say you're eligible to be tested. And so even though you may have already gone through your cancer journey, it doesn't mean that you can't test to know your risk for other cancers and to know for your family. And so it's really important for you to check in with your doctor to say, okay, I have this family history, or I got diagnosed at 46 and I didn't get genetic testing back then. It was 1985. Should I get tested?
Right.
And the answer is yes, you should. And the newest guidelines from the American Society of Breast Surgeons says that all women who are newly diagnosed with breast cancer should at least have a consultation and a discussion about genetic counseling and or testing. So that means every woman is now more eligible now than
right.
Or whether you're currently diagnosed and going through treatment. If this didn't happen for you, it can happen now. And I think the other misconception about testing is that, that information is going to be used against you in some way, or that it's going to be used for research that you're unaware of. And there are safeguards in place to protect your genetic information. You get to decide how that information gets used. Yes, it does go to help the larger body of individuals, because when we look at how the results are given, you either have no mutation, you have a pathogenic mutation, which means if you have the mistake in the gene, you're more likely to get the cancer, or you have something called a variant of uncertain significance, a VUS. And it has been shown in studies, and Dr. Davis, if she were here, she would talk about that. More Black and brown individuals found to have these variants of uncertain significance, meaning we just don't have enough science to know what the change in your gene means. So we can't say for sure that change means you're more likely to get cancer, or that you're more likely for your children to inherit it. So Black people are more likely to have variants of uncertain significance, and that means we need more research. And that's why it's so important that we have programs like Black Genes Matter, because if we keep coming up with the variants, it's not helping us. And so we need that science, and we need to understand what's going on so that we can better know why there are so many of us in our families. I just talked to a young woman over here at the farm today. She had 5 siblings with pancreatic, colon cancer, breast cancer, 2 aunts, and she's followed in a genetics program, no mutation that they know of yet. So the science is still evolving on this, and it means that we have an opportunity, right, to be counted. Tallulah, I love it. You said I'm an advocate for my family. We like it's not a detriment. It's an opportunity, and you, by taking that step, right, open the door for your whole family to get more information. For us as a people to get more information, and that's powerful.
You're right.
Well, I do want to see if there's anybody in the chat in here who has questions for any of us, to please put those in the chat.
Absolutely. And I want us to talk a little bit. Did we did our commercial already? Because I think I want to take us and segue into this, right? So it's so important. It's important enough that we have a target, right? And we're going to be talking about how Black Genes Matter. We're going to run this and show this commercial. And we want your feedback in the chat. We want you to tell us what you think. So there it is, right? And, Laura, can you tell us a little bit about why you started this movement? And then Tallulah, I want you to weigh in and talk about trust in the community. And let's go there with it, because that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's go there.
Yeah, I started Black Genes Matter because I began to realize the disparity that our white peers are tested for the genes, both genetic mutations, things that you inherit, as we've been talking about, but also if you've been diagnosed with cancer. And I said cancer, I didn't necessarily say breast. It's all cancers, in particular breast, in particular lung, in particular prostate, and in particular colorectal. That you have what's called genomic, it's got all these terms. Sorry, guys. Genomic testing, biomarker testing, it's all the same. Somatic testing, it's the same. Its category just has a lot of terms for the same thing. But it's basically opening up that tumor that they biopsy, looking inside and saying, what kind of mutations do you have? What's really driving your cancer? It's called precision oncology for a reason, because they precisely want to target some things from a cancer start, and it's on, a gene is on and it's supposed to be off, or it's off and it should be on. And knowing that helps guide your care. And I was just this week at a summit learning the latest science in this stuff, and more it's going to be targeted. And so you've got to know, get this test. But we're only getting the test, guess what, as Black people, 37% of the time. And so I said, that's got to stop. We need to know, if the doctors aren't ordering it, let's say, for whatever reason, we could at least be informed. That's why we're on, and that's why we started Black Genes Matters, to get out into the community and say, you take this to your doctor, and we'll have resources later. Take this to your doctor. Here are the questions that you have, and here are the things you need to ask. Take this to your doctor and say, I understand that I should have biomarker and genetic testing. I'd like to get that. And so we're trying to tell people, this community, our community, we want to get the word out. And we're starting with our launch on October 19th, Party with a Purpose, in the DMV. It's a Thursday happy hour, and it is wear your Black outfit or your Black jeans to learn about your Black genes. And we'll have people with lived experience. We'll have a DJ. We have giveaways, a swag bag. It's going to be a lot of fun. And food, fun. And then we have a fireside chat with people, men and women. Don't forget, men and women, right? Because as Tallulah said, breast cancer impacts men and women, and also the genetic pieces. We'll have people with prostate, breast cancer, tell their stories. You'll get lots of information, lots of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please go to blackjeansmatter.info, sign up if you're in the DMV, and join us. Then we will be taking it on the road to 4 other cities around the country. We'll be in New Jersey, North Carolina, Texas, and back in the DMV. So please join the movement. It really is a movement, so that you know and so that you can tell others about this important information. I'm sorry, I get so excited.
It is exciting. And you know, what's really exciting is that we have Dr. Davis, who's going to be dialing in. And Dr. Melissa Davis is a dear friend of ours. She's a colleague. She's a medical advisor. She is an expert in the field of cancer genetics and genomics. And she is the director of a new research institute at Morehouse School of Medicine. So she's going to tell us more about it. But I see somebody in the chat that I never heard of BRCA before breast cancer. And I have a Black surgeon, and that she gave me the genetic test first visit. That's how it's supposed to go, right? And some women get tested after everything is all over with, you know, and they say, well, and that I think is a common reason. So Tallulah, you know, before Dr. Melissa chimes in, as she's coming in, let's talk about some reasons why people don't want to get tested. And I'll start with my own family. My sister said, I don't want to see the train coming. She said, the train's coming, I don't want to see it. And I said, well, I want to know so I can push you off the tracks. She said, you know what?
Right.
I don't know if I want to know. I'm not ready for this. What are some other reasons why people choose not to get tested?
Right. And I think I spoke a little on this before. It's you know, if my information gets out there, it may affect my job, right? It may, because, you know, on those applications, they ask you specifically about cancer. And will it affect my insurance? Will I be able to get insurance because they know, hey, that I'm predisposed to this disease, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I started my own nonprofit, 2 for 2 Boobs, long ago to speak on genetic testing and why it's important to share my story. So to have an organization now really, really pushing it in the communities that we serve. I work on the managed care side too. And one thing that I started working on in managed care was to make sure that the women are educated on breast health. And one big part of that education is on genetic testing, knowing your family history, knowing that, you know, where you can get access to get the test, why it won't, you know, dispelling the myths, the things that people are scared about for getting the testing. And that's helping. We've educated 200 women in the District of Columbia alone. So to move it to city is going to be great. So I'm on that train too.
Laura, I'm going to have you come off and mute, and I want you to talk about your experience in managed care as well, and in industry.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I've been a health plan executive for 15 years at a large insurer and a regional insurer. And I do know that the policies matter, and that's why we work on policy. But as Dr. Mo said, the guidelines have changed and been more expansive that require, also in your state, we'll be coming back and talking to you about advocating in your state for coverage. There's legislation. I testified for it. It passed in Maryland, but that it requires insurers to cover the biomarker and genetic testing. Okay. But also your health plan. We're going to have a segment on this program talking all about what? Insurance. It is coming up. Yes, because it's open enrollment season. So we're going to have experts on to tell you about how to pick your insurance. And if you've got your insurance, how to tell whether they cover it. We're going to have experts on to make sure you're educated. Remember, this is all about you and spreading the word. And it's open enrollment season. So it's really important you ask these questions ahead of time so you pick the right plan.
And let me just put a plug and say, don't ask your doctors because we don't know.
Right.
We are not educated about this. And I hate to admit that because it's kind of like, you know, it's a little bit embarrassing, but we are not trained to understand insurance policies. We're not trained to focus on any
Right.
aspect of pain that is totally separate from medical care. It's like divided. And so many times patients will say, well, what plan should I, and how do I navigate these things? And they don't realize their doctors are trying to figure out the same thing. And so this is a really important conversation that I think healthcare providers should be invited to also.
Oh, yeah.
Because it will help us to be able to better answer those questions for patients. I know Dr. Davis is here, and let me take a second to introduce her. Dr. Melissa Davis, previously from Cornell, is in my opinion, one of the definitive experts in cancer genetics and genomics today. She has started early in her career focusing on, in particular, breast cancer in the Black and brown communities and understanding whether or not there are hereditary mutations, looking at whole gene sequencing as opposed to just little parts of the gene. I mean, anything and everything that has to do with what's happening in us, not just here, but across the diaspora, and expanding the conversation about not just race, because it's so much deeper than our complexion, right? This thing goes back to our ancestry. And so she is a definitive expert. She's here. She's joining us. Dr. Davis, are you with us today? There she go. That's my
Hi, good morning. Hi, and my apologies for not coming on earlier. I wear a lot of hats. Being a single mom is one, and on Saturday, things can sometimes get out of hand. But I'm so happy to be here. Yes, absolutely. Genetic ancestry has a lot to do with some of the barriers that we have currently. Yeah, I just want to jump in. So, tell me, how can I join in?
So I think one thing that, Laura mentioned the word genomic, right? So there's genetic and genomic testing. And maybe we could just even start there and helping people to understand the difference between the two. And then we can dive into some of the research that you've been doing and help people understand why it's relevant.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's a very good question. So, we talk about genetics, and, everybody's probably had a little bit of genetics in their background where we understand that we get our genes from our parents, so just passing on genes through chromosomes. When we talk about genomics, we're really trying to look at systems of genes, okay? So think about it like circuitry, right? So no one gene is an island. No one gene operates, by itself. There are groups of genes that work together in a cell to make sure that the cell functions appropriately, right? So in genomics, what we're looking at is pathways of molecular processes. So for instance, why inflammation occurs. We want to understand all of the genes that are involved in immune responses, particularly in tumors. And certainly one of the things that we've discovered as we compare, for instance, the genomics of tumors between women who are of European ancestry versus women who are of African ancestry is that the immune response is very different in people of African ancestry. And that comes from the fact that our ancestors, in Africa were exposed to very different types of pathogens than the ancestors of Europeans. And so our immune system has actually evolved to, respond to the same things differently. Right. And so in the aspect of cancer and genomic testing, so we're looking at systems of genes and tumors, it helps clinicians define, with more detail, the type of cancer that you have. And sometimes there might be a drug that's been developed specifically for that system of genes, right? So we call that targeted therapy, where, we've looked at all the genes and we've identified some system that's, targetable or that the tumor relies on in order to grow. And so when we think about who has been a part of that research, we've defined the European tumors very well. And so the targeted therapies that are available are really, inherently, not necessarily maliciously, but inherently targeted for those types of tumors. And so we just never really looked deeply at tumors in African Americans and Africans to understand that there are other types of systems at work in those tumors that we could potentially target. But that's also why potentially some of the genetic tests that are available don't perform as well for people of African descent, because the tests have been developed with the understanding of the European background, not the African background. And so the
Wow.
research
So
that
let's
we
pause it.
do, yeah. Okay, okay.
Because this is blowing our
Yeah,
minds
stop
here.
me.
Hold on. So let's break this down. So first of all, what you said is that genetic testing tests the genes you're born with. Genomic testing tests the change in the tumors, right? Because the tumors as well, those cells went
Yes.
rogue, and one made two, made four made a
Yeah,
million, and now we can
exactly.
find out what are the
Exactly.
changes that make that tumor do that, and that's genomic testing, right? You used a much more eloquent way of saying it, but it tests the genes in the tumor, and that's important for
Yes,
people to know,
exactly.
because you can
Yes,
get genetic
exactly.
testing and still not get genomic testing. Your
Right.
doctor may not have offered
No,
you that. And that's a question. As we talk about, take home points, you want to make sure that if you are newly diagnosed, or if you're going with somebody to their doctor's office, that you're asking not just about genetic testing, but inquire about genomic testing, not just for breast anymore, but for colon, for prostate, for
absolutely.
pancreatic. Every
All of it.
cancer has testing that can be done on a tumor to better understand how to personalize the medicines, right?
Right.
And then the
That's right.
second part
All
of
of
what
them.
you said, yeah, then the second part of what you said is that you said that sometimes the test doesn't even work because it hasn't been studied in our population, in our genes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So
So
the
what do
genetic panels, the mutation panels that we are, referred to. So you should do the test, even with this information and understanding that if you're of African background, it's going to be more likely that the test result is going to come back with a variant of unknown significance. They're going to find something in the cancer gene that they've never seen before. And so they
Mhm.
call that unknown significance. Okay. And it's
Wow.
true of people of Latin American background as well. Okay. So if you're not European and you take these mutation panels and they're supposed to tell you whether or not you have a pathogenic, okay, so meaning predisposition to a disease, pathogenic variant of a cancer gene. And they're going to tell
Mhm.
us 45% to 50% of the time, well, we see a variant here that we've never seen before, but we can't tell you whether or not it's of higher risk because we haven't done enough research on this particular variant. And so that's what we're working on. We're doing all of the research on all of the variants of African backgrounds so that we can with confidence tell you yes it is pathogenic or no it's not, because we really need to know. We really need to
Okay.
know.
So at this point, I want to pause here and let people digest this information, but I also want to invite
Okay.
you to go to join Touch for Life. Like there's an action item here for you. Let's put up our giveaway flyer, and we want to encourage people to get involved. Right? There's a chance for you. So time to enter to win a prize in SOS. There it is. There's the QR code. Right? Send it to a friend. Take a screenshot of it. We want to share. We want to get people engaged. They're not going to give away your email address, but they are going to send you some really interesting information that's going to help you to take this back to your homes. Because one of the things when you watch this show, you're like, okay, this is great information. What do I do next? What do I do with it? We want you to share it. We want you to start talking to your family about that family history. Didn't cousin so-and-so
Yes.
have colon cancer? How old was he? Does anybody else in the family? Like, we got to normalize having these conversations, right, Dr. Melissa?
Yes, ma'am. And it'll also help us understand more because the way the BRCA gene was even discovered was by studying families and their family health history. And so if we don't know ours, then we won't be able to understand whether these unknown variants are pathogenic or not. So it's very
Now, I
important that
call
we
that
capture that
VUS.
information.
Yeah, I call it
Yes.
VUS, very unsatisfying result.
Yes,
It is a very
it
unsatisfying
is.
information.
It
Oh my
is.
gosh. Look at
And
But
that.
that was just what
and
I
a
was.
big point for that is when my dad died from breast cancer. Later, my brother, who was diagnosed with for breast cancer, was interviewed for a story, and it surprised me that he said that he knew my dad died from cancer, but he didn't know it was breast cancer. And then I thought about it, and I really thought, did we as a family even talk about dad had breast cancer, or was it that he died from cancer? We didn't call it out. So
Yeah.
a lot of them like really didn't think, hey, that was the cause of his cancer, right? I think it was more that the cancer had metastasized and it moved to his lungs or, another body. So he died from lung cancer when initially it started in the breast. And as a man,
say that again. Not where it ended, it's where it started. Say that again.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And that takes us into our last segment here. Let's pause and let's really get a second to reflect. We want you to put your questions in the chat because we are here to take the last few minutes of this show, and we really want to address your questions and start talking about some of the advancements that are happening. So we're going to get into it in just a second. Stay with us. We're here on SOS Saturday. We are soul filling our sisters on BlackDoctor.org. Join us, share it, share with a friend. All right.
Hi,
So
Ricky.
let's do this. I see Ricky, our favorite breastie, is in the chat.
Yes.
Hey, we'll be on the next show. So, Dr. Melissa, talk to us about the research that's being done. How can people get involved, and what should they be asking their doctors in order to get more involved to understand this better for our community?
Oh, there's so many layers to what you just asked me. I mean, first of all, have these conversations with your doctors, because what we're starting to do is not only ask patients to participate, but we have to educate our clinicians about these disparities as well. So ask them if they know about it. Ask them if they're participating in any of the studies that are ongoing to include Black women in research. And then I'll tell you, keep your eye out. And I think, Touch for Cancer and all of the Touch for Life and several other patient advocacy groups are going to be pushing out some more information about research. I mean, we, of course, are enrolling Black women. The American Cancer Society is about to launch a huge research project for Black women, particularly this fall in the month of breast cancer awareness. So keep an eye out for that. I think that when you talk to your clinicians, you should also talk to them about being trustworthy. Okay, because there's this misconception that Black women are difficult to recruit, and I don't think that's true. I think we trust who we trust, and we don't trust who we don't trust. And so if someone who you trust asks you to be a part of a research study, then you're more likely to say yes. If someone you don't trust asks you to be part of a research study, then you're going to say no. I think that the street is sort of two-way here, so it's on us to be trustworthy. Okay, but we also need to have these conversations about what the research is. Okay, we protect you, we make sure that we have your privacy in mind. We make sure that there are no unethical people on the study, first of all, who have access to anything, but certainly that nothing of harm is going to come to you. So I just want to make those points. And I'll say that go ahead. I was going to just say quickly that we're also going more global with our research. I think it's very important that, instead of just looking at pockets and silos of small populations, we need to get back to our ancestral roots. We need to understand, how the genomes in Africa are also responding to their environment in a way that's causing, the same type of breast cancer that we see in Black women in the United States, the same type of breast cancer that we see in Black women in Europe, in the Caribbean, in all of these populations and women of West African ancestry. We're seeing the same types of aggressive tumor types. So we got to get it. We got to get into it.
I hear you say that across the globe. And, I see in the chat, Constance, I see you say, you know what, I wish this information had been available 30 years ago, right?
That's my big sister. Constance is my big sister.
Thanks for joining us. You said, I wish that this had been available 30 years ago. And back then they knew nothing. But you know what? When we know better, we do better. And so this is our moment, right? It is our moment to be involved, because there is this misconception that Black women, that Black people don't want to be involved in research, that we aren't interested in, in genetic testing and cancer research and the science, and that, there's this misconception that still persists in the medical profession today. And I think we are shattering that myth. We are shattering it right here and right now.
That's why we're taking it to people, how they can get involved. So I'd like to say a few things, particularly that's again why Black Genes Matter is focused, is that you can get involved in the form that you're going to see that we're going to give to you. You can raise your hand and say, I want to be an ambassador. I like the information that I learned. I want to tell other people about it. So you could sign up to be an ambassador. You can sign up to be a community partner, which means we would bring this information to the community that you're in, your church, your women's organization, your men's organization. We could bring that to you. You can also sign up and say, I want to get tested. I want genetic testing. I want biomarker testing. Once again, it's so important that our bio data is in the set so that when they're looking for the things that Dr. Melissa is talking about, they're looking for things that impact us. And so on that form, you can sign up. We'll be in those 4 cities. We'll send you information. I mean, the latest information on biomarker. It blew my mind. I can't wait to blog about it. And so you get the benefit of the information that we're getting. We've got clinical champions with City of Hope who are here to answer your question in certain markets. They're NIH doctors. They're doctors at Duke. They're doctors all over the country who are here for you. They have signed up and said, we want to be partners with Black Genes Matter so that if you have questions, they're geneticists, all these all these smart people at the ready for you. We've built this as a movement for you. And so please, when it's time and when it comes on the screen, get the QR code, sign up, or go to blackgenesmatter.info and sign up and say, I want to be part of this movement because I don't want what's been happening to keep happening.
All right. I got a question from the chat here also. We're just in DC at the Congressional Black Caucus Legislative there at their conference. And we talked a lot about policy for navigation and other things. Are there any policies that could help increase equitable access? Anything that we should be talking to our politicians, our local state representatives about? What can we do at a policy level, if anything? Dr. Davis, I'll start with you.
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of professional organizations also have a component of lobbyists, right? And some of our patient advocacy organizations also have lobbyists. But as I was joining, I heard Laura mentioning that, she's actually a part of a biomarker policy campaign. So in the state of Georgia, we also have a committee. Actually, many of our members of Morehouse School of Medicine are our leadership, I should say, are part of an organization that's lobbying for biomarker testing. Because again, if we don't get the genomics test, then we won't really know the specific type of cancer that we have. And so I would say put pressure on your congressman when this type of agenda is on the table to take it seriously. It's something that we need to be informed about too, just as a community in general. And so we can provide you information about that. I think that it's going to happen at a state level right now until it becomes something that is,
I can
payee information. Yeah. Thank you.
There are only 12 states. Okay. 12 states only have covered this genetic and genomic testing. As I mentioned, I testified in Maryland. Touch for Life is partnered with American Cancer Society, CAN. It's their policy arm. We are also part of over 26 industry representatives in a biomarker commons group. And guess what? We're the only Black-led organization in there. When you sign up and you're part of the movement, and I say we've got thousands of women behind us, and I'm a seat at the table, I checked them on that, and I pushed them and said, "Hey, every cancer organization represented here is an organization where the Black people are dying the most. Yet there's nobody Black here." And they put me on right away. Of course, they added me to that, so I could represent you. I'm at the table and I'm using your voice. And the bigger our movement gets and the more people that sign up, we say that we've got the strength. And so wherever I am, you are. I'm talking to you. So we're only 12 states. 2 are pending. Massachusetts and California are pending. That would bring it to 14. That's abysmal. Sign up and you can be a voice. Touch for Life has a training cohort where we are training Black women how to use their voice. We're talking about what's the legislative process. It's a program called Behave. It's what's the legislative process. How do I look for legislation? How do I support it? How do I tell my story? We're teaching you storytelling. It's a 6-module class that we've built for you and with one of our partners, Cardia Services, to train you how to be an ambassador at your state or federal level. That's what we're about. And we want to make sure that your voice is heard with these policymakers and that you have a seat at the table.
And Laura, to piggyback off that, we have a comment in the chat, from our bestie Ricky. She said we need policy on screening at younger ages, right? We need policy on genetic and genomic testing that's paid for as the standard of care, navigation that's paid for. And I think that that's a really key point, is that we got to put our money where our mouth is. And we need to be able to make sure that those policies are in place to protect those people who don't know to ask their doctor.
Oh, right.
People who, we can standardize this a bit better and make sure that it becomes across the board. This is the standard of care. And not only that, but that we're making sure we uphold that standard of care.
And I know working in the Medicaid space is not a standard of care.
Well, that's what this legislation does. It's covering Medicaid and your commercial plans that aren't large employer groups. And that leaves out a portion. But that's why with my health plan executive, I'm talking to the big payers at the table and asking them for policy to follow the policy guidelines and make a coverage work too. And working for you
as well as the way that they code as well, so that more men can get this testing. Because my brother had an issue in Pennsylvania, and it was, I think, a question about having a child or something like that, and he's a man. He
Well, come on back, and we have our insurance.
His insurance
session is coming up, and so make sure you're there for that as well. But there's so many ways for you to get involved. It starts with sharing what you learned here. Tag us, Black Genes Matter. Tag us at Touch for Life Inc. Tag us at Black Genes Matter info, and make sure you're sharing this information with your family as well.
And I want to just give a pause, because I'm going to sum up everything, and we want to think about, what are our talking points for the end of this. So you watched the whole show, and we thank you for joining us. This has been S.O.S. on BlackDoctor.org. And let's really talk about what we want you to do when you leave this show. One, that family history, right? Because Tallulah really hit the nail on the head when she said, the men in the family, right? It's not just breast. This is so much bigger than breast cancer. Any cancers in your family, one, you should know who had it and at what age. Were they at least over or under 50? And you should be starting to store that history, just like we do in our family reunion. And we got the family tree, and Uncle Cecil married Aunt Jane, and they had cousin Judy and so forth. Okay, put a little CRC for colon cancer, colorectal cancer. Well, how about a little PC for prostate cancer, so that we can start to know that family history, right? And include that in our genealogy. Two, there's some ways that you can stay connected to S.O.S. and some action items that you can do beyond sharing the show, which we want you to click and share with everybody. Share it to your whole network. And Black Doctor hopefully will broadcast this again. It is stored on their website, and we want you to share the information. But join the movement. Come to the launch party. Laura, you want to tell them a little bit more about that?
Yes. The launch party is October 19th in the DMV. It's Party with a Purpose. So we have a DJ, we have a photo booth, swag bag giveaway, but in the middle, we have a fireside chat where men or women are talking about their experience. We've got information to give out. That's going to start October 19th. We want you to be there. And there's going to be a slide that comes up that gives you the QR code, so you could sign up and make sure that we want to see your face in the place. So you can have and please invite 5 other people. Once you sign up, invite 5 other people. It's really important.
Dr. Davis, you want to send us home and tell us anything else you want people to know? What's your closing remarks for everybody today?
My closing remarks are to protect your genes. Okay. So for me as a geneticist, one of the things that's very important to me is to make sure that we understand that even though there's not enough information about our genetic background, we do have a lot of information about what harms our genes. And I think it's very important that, we pay attention to that. And as you said, at the family reunion, at Thanksgiving, let's be conscious about what's on the menu. Let's be conscious about how we're talking about all of our family. One point that I didn't make, and I think I want to amplify this a bit, that Tallulah mentioned, is, Black men actually get breast cancer more frequently than white men. And when we talk to our patient advocates who are men, they say that it's chest cancer. And so let's be a little more, I guess, sensitive about how we talk about certain types of cancer with our families. And maybe then we'll, kind of come out of that silence about it, because my grandfather also passed away from cancer, but we don't yet know what type it was. It was just a strange way it was written in his medical record. Some of that has to do with the healthcare system, but that's protect your genes. That's my mantra.
I love it. Tallulah, any closing remarks for us here?
No, just, Black genes matter. Had that family conversation. Know you're normal. Don't be scared. Go get tested. Help your family by becoming your family advocate.
And there it is. We would like to certainly thank BlackDoctor.org. We want to thank our sponsors. Laura, let's put a shout out in the chat for our sponsors. And there it is. There's the QR code. Come join us. Come party with a purpose. In October, we are going to be launching Black Jeans Matters. We're having a Black Jeans party, and you are all invited. October 19th, come party with a purpose. Thank you to Basser. Thank you to Myriad. Thank you to BlackDoctor.org. Thank you to all of our sponsors, High Impact Partners, Whole Logic, and we will see you every fourth Saturday here on BlackDoctor.org with S.O.S. by Touch for Life. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.